The daily stats, total confirmed deaths now worldwide, 43,271. That's up from 38,000 yesterday. What's amazing is we're now talking about in America alone a death count over 100,000, between 100 and 200,000. Just in America. Total confirmed cases now we approach 1,872,000, up from 799. So almost about 80,000 new cases yesterday. We now have 188,000 confirmed cases and 4,000 deaths. That's up 20,000 in the case count and up almost 1,000 in deaths just in the last 24 hours. We now lead the world in total confirmed cases with 78,000. That's more cases than Italy, although Italy leads the world in deaths with 12,428. 11% of the U.S. confirmed cases are requiring hospitalization, roughly on par with Italy. We may have a lot of cases, but not per capita. We are 24th in total confirmed cases per 1 million people, with 507 cases per 1 million. Spain has 2,185 cases, more than 4 times the amount per million. We are 28th in total confirmed dead per 1 million, with 12 dead per 1 million citizens. Italy has 206 dead per 1 million. Now, here's the thing that we want to transition into with Stephen Moore. The U.S. energy industry is on the verge of a massive collapse. For the first time in my lifetime, it could be said 3 weeks ago that the United States was free from all foreign energy. We were energy independent. For the first time in my lifetime, we have been trying to get that monkey off of our back forever. Well, under Trump, we finally accomplished it. Now, the U.S. energy market is on the verge of massive collapse. Here's why. Russia and the Saudis have just been pumping oil like there is no tomorrow. They've been trying to collapse the United States energy independence. They need us to be hooked on their energy. Well, they did that as soon as the airlines started to collapse all around the world. Transportation is down 45%. Whew. So that's why you're seeing gas prices going so low. In fact, they're going so low. There's so much oil now. We are literally swimming in oil. The world is that they're thinking now that the price could even go into the negative range for a price of a barrel of oil. So they'd pay you $5 to take the oil because there's no place to store all of the oil. Rick Perry has recommended that U.S. refineries be restricted now from importing and refining any foreign petroleum products for at least 60 days as a means to help domestic energy producers in Texas, North Dakota, Pennsylvania, and Colorado. I think this is something that, as an emergency step, the president should do. If independent energy producers go out of business, we are handing the market back to Russia and Saudi Arabia. Rick Perry says it's 1974 all over again. In our bailout nation, now the car industry needs a bailout. Year over year, automobile sales in the U.S. are off as much as 90%. Analysts say April is going to be worse. Dan Ferguson said everything you need to know. He's the manager of a Ford dealership in Arizona. He said he may have to lay off his entire staff of 48 employees. He said, we hear there are supposed to be government loan programs for small businesses, but that money may be weeks away. I can't make payroll today. One other. It looks like in New York, 40% of renters are not going to be able to make rent this month, and it's expected to be worse next month. The problem with that is stick it to the landlord, right? Except the landlord's not getting any relief. How is the landlord, if he's not getting rent, going to be able to pay for all the water, garbage, electricity, everything that it takes to run one of these apartment buildings? There is a meltdown coming. Stephen Moore is joining us now. Hello, Stephen. How are you?
Well, hi, Glenn. I saying it is catastrophic. I mean, it makes my heart drop to hear these stories about business after business going bankrupt. And, it's heartbreaking. And, I can't tell you how many businessmen and women have called me in the last few days and said the same thing. I can't meet payroll. Revenues and customers are the oxygen supply of a business. And, I'm sorry. I think I haven't talked recently, Glenn, but I just don't think that this lockdown of our economy is the right thing to do. I think that the suffering, the human suffering, the trillions of dollars of losses, the millions of people who've spent, the heroes of our economy, the people who've built up businesses from ground floor to, put their whole life into it to see it ruined in a matter of weeks. It's unspeakable. It's horrible. We got to get our economy reopened.
So, Stephen, I agree with you. I just don't see a way of doing that safely. And the problem is there might be 200,000 dead, but if we destroy the engine of the world, if we destroy this and we can't get back online and start really jumping back in, how many millions will die because America is in wreckage?
Well, that's the question we should be asking. And these are tough questions. I apologize for being a little late for your show today. I was on the phone with some of the folks at the White House talking about this. And the president's got some really tough decisions to make. And this is, his Churchillian moment. He has to guide us through this. I think the idea, I live in Virginia. Our governor insanely has said that he wants to keep the economy locked down until the middle of June. That to me is nuts.
That's crazy.
There's not going to be an economy. It's crazy. It's lunatic. I mean, you do that, there's not going to be an economy left to rebuild in June when the things are reopened. So, it's interesting. I'm going to give you some rays of sunlight here. I had a long conversation, Glenn, with one of my heroes, Fred Smith, the CEO of FedEx, one of America's great companies, one of our largest companies and biggest employers. And we spoke for about an hour, and he's up and running. They're up and running, not just in the United States, but throughout the world, as you know. They have 350,000 employees in the United States. 350,000. That's a lot. That's like a pretty medium-sized city. And I said, how many of those people? Because they've been working for the last 6-8 weeks. I said, how many have come out down sick? So that's 1 in 1,000. 1 in 1,000. And what he's saying is they're using all the best practices, the medical practices. They're doing sterilizations and disinfectants, and they're wearing masks, and they're wearing gloves, and they're doing social distancing in the workplace. And I'm here to tell you, Glenn, I think we can do this in a smart way that reduce the risk of death. We may have to tolerate some additional deaths, but that's the kind of decision we make every day and every policy decision we make. But, there's a rule of thumb. Every 10,000, every 1 percentage point increase in the unemployment rate, and this is a rule of thumb, but it's fairly, accurate historically. Every 1 percentage point increase in the unemployment rate is associated with 10,000 additional deaths in the United States. Some economists are saying we're going to see a 25% unemployment rate in this country, and that's very conceivable if we continue to lock down our economy. So we've just caused 200,000 more deaths just from raising the unemployment rate. So we have to be very smart about this and calibrated in our decisions. I just don't think that this trade-off between our economy and our health is being discussed in a responsible manner.
So, Stephen, the Fed came out with their prediction of 32.5% unemployment by June 1st. That is, the height of the Depression was, I think, 25%. We've never seen anything like that. What can expect or prepare for?
Well, God, let's pray that doesn't happen, because then you go back to my rule of thumb. There's about 300,000 additional deaths just from the rise in the unemployment rate.
That also is revolution. That's revolution territory.
Yeah. See, this is what worries me. Is I think you're going to get social chaos in that situation when you have that many people unemployed. It doesn't look, Glenn. Let me start from the beginning here, because none of the pinheads in Washington understand this. They keep thinking, we're just going to keep having one bailout bill after another, one stimulus bill after another. $2 trillion, $3 trillion, $4 trillion, $5 trillion. And then the Fed says, we're just going to keep printing money. And I'm here to tell you, Glenn, It doesn't matter how much money the Fed prints. It doesn't matter how many of these rescue plans, how many trillions of dollars they put into helicopters and dump over cities. If the American economy isn't producing, it collapses. It doesn't matter how much money they're acting like
we only need this is the crazy thing, Stephen. I don't understand. Say moratorium on rent and mortgages and everything else for 2 months or whatever it is, because what people need to know right now is I can pay my basic bills. I can pay for the rent, and my company doesn't have to worry about their mortgage on their building and those big items. I don't know why we're not covering that, because we're not going out and spending. We're not doing it. And so what we need right now is just to not lose our place. That's what we need. Just don't lose our place. Don't let me lose my restaurant that I've worked my whole life to build because I can't afford the rent.
That's happening as we speak, and it's heartbreaking. It's happening in neighborhoods everywhere around the country and towns. And
is there any talk in Washington about doing anything for that?
Well, we just sent out, $1,200 per adult and $500 per child, and we've got the unemployment insurance that's paying people 100% of what their paychecks are. So we're providing a lot of aid, but the problem isn't the aid; it's we need our businesses to be functioning.
Open.
I
know.
They need to be functioning. They need to be open. You mentioned that story about, I was listening to what you were saying before I came. The people not paying their rent. I just got off the phone with a woman who owns apartment buildings throughout the country. She is not rich by any means. This is how she makes her money. And she says basically starting 2 weeks ago, zero. Everybody stopped paying their rent because the government's saying, hey, you cannot pay your rent and you won't be evicted. And people are making the decision, well, I'm just not going to pay. Well, think about that. Means now she doesn't have any income, right, because nobody's paying her bills. So she has to foreclose on the bank. The loan she has from the bank now doesn't have any money. I mean, I worry this cascades in a really ugly way if we don't get this up and running again. Yeah.
It reorders everything, and the only ones that might win are at the very, very top or at the government level. Nobody wins in this one.